Hello, this video is on importing shapefiles that have been exported out of the R7 tool or out of SMS as a shapefile into the John Deere GS3 or 2630 monitor. And so the first thing you need to do is need to get the files onto the USB stick that's going to go into the monitor. Those files need to go into a file that is named RX, capital R, lowercase x. And those files need to be all copied into that file folder, but they have to go in there individually, and they cannot be underneath of a file folder underneath that RX tab, and that RX folder needs to be in the root directory of that stick. So in other words, when you plug it into your computer, you open up the USB stick, you see the RX folder show up on there. Once you've got the files loaded onto there, and remember those shape files, there's 3 of those files to make up a shape file. There's the name of the file, then a .dbf, a .shx, and a .shp that have to go on there for each shapefile. So once you got them onto the shapefile, you're going to need to open up or start the monitor up, let it get up all the way, and then on the right hand side of the monitor there's a rubber plug that you're going to open up, and that's going to be where the shapefile or the USB stick goes into so you can load the shapefiles. So we've inserted our USB stick into the monitor. We're going to get this data transfer screen, and we're going to come in here and we're going to click on the import prescriptions and shapefile data, and then the next screen we're going to click on import RX, and that's going to bring the files in. When it gets complete, it's going to tell you need to remove the USB stick to continue with display operations. The display will not do anything until you take it back out. So we're going to hit accept to get back to this data transfer, and they're going to remove the stick from the monitor, and it's going to come back into the monitor screen. And it shows up here, it's showing up on the Green Star main screen, and showing how much memory you've got into there. Before we can do anything with the monitor and the shapefiles, we have to get the resources set up so that we can set up the client and the farm and the field. We also have to set up the task that we're going to do. We need to make sure it's set up to the current crop year, and you can leave the operator off if you don't want to put that into there. Once we've got that set up, then we go back into documentation, and we want to make sure that we got the correct seed type in there if we're doing a seed. This is an example of a seed prescription we're going to do. And then we need to add a variety, and so we're going to select this variety that's set up in here. We can set them up new if we need to. We're going to hit accept, get a variety set up, and then we're going to come down and go to the RX tab. That brings us in this prescription screen. So we're going to click on this prescription, and we're going to get into shapefile, and that's going to open up our shapefile conversions. That's because we haven't converted any files yet. You can convert these ahead of time, and you just would select on the file name underneath there instead of shapefile, but we haven't converted any files yet, so we're going to have to select those shapefiles on there. And I click on the shapefile, and we got 2 shapefiles that came in, and we're going to do this Woods East seed recommendation. This column should show up as value under here because that's what it came out of the R7 tool, and that's how it gets exported out. The product type is we're going to do seeds by count on this, since this is a corn recommendation. And then down here there's 2 important boxes. If you've done this already, they should be pre-populated, but if you haven't done this yet in a monitor, you'll need to put these in here. You need to make sure there's a number in this out of the boundary or field rate, and what that's for is if your planter happens to hang outside of the prescription, it will go ahead and continue planting. If you leave that at 0, if part of the planter happens to hang outside that prescription or outside the field boundary, it's going to shut that section of the planter off. And so so if they change the boundary or they've added some more onto the field or whatever, the boundary wasn't quite right when you created the prescription, you need to put a number in there, so if the planter hangs outside of that, then it will plant. Also need to make sure that there is a loss of GPS value in there. If you get an error here when you enter those in that says something about that these two values are outside the parameters of your prescription, you need to go back and check your prescription to make sure it is in seeds per acre and not kiloseeds per acre. And if it's in kiloseeds per acre, then you will not be putting on enough seed. Once we get that all set up, we're going to hit accept. We're going to wait for it to convert. We've got our conversion done. We're going to get a map that looks like this. Tells us how many seeds we need, our maximum rate, our minimum rate, what our average rate is on the field. And then this map should look like our prescription. We can enlarge it so we can look at it. If we get something other than what we think our prescription should look like, then we need to go back and check to make sure that we've either grabbed the right prescription or there's something wrong with that prescription. Once we got that ready to go, we can hit accept. And then that brings us back to our prescription in here. And we can change this stuff by clicking on the RX button. It comes into here. One thing we need to make sure is set this look ahead. What that does is, as you're traveling across the field, it tells the monitor how far to look ahead to grab the rate, so that when it gets there, the planter's sped up or slowed down to put on the proper rate when it goes into an area. Also, this prescription multiplier is here. Someone decides, we're going to have they just change their mind and they want to up the prescription in here. They want to put on some more seeds in here than what they did. So they want to put on 5% more seed. We can change that and we up our rate, or if we change that to 95%, we lowered our rate in all those areas because, the guy said maybe this is going to be drier, so we want to back the population off. And so we can change that as we go across the field. This is also a good thing when you kick out a prescription out. If you did a prescription in the R7 tool for pounds of N, because the GS3 is going to look at pounds of ammonia, you can up your rate 18% on there, and so that your pounds of N prescription actually come out right for pounds of ammonia, or you change it so it'll come out right for the N that you need. We're going to put it back to 100, and then we're going to hit accept. And that loaded our prescription. It shows up here where it says prescription. Now we need to make sure that we're going to put on the right rate onto this and make sure it uses the prescription. So we're going to go to the menu, and then we're going to click on our planter button. And that's going to open up the GS3RxImport in this example screen. And then we're going to come down here to H button, which is our rates. Then we're going to go to show rates. And then we've got rate 6. John Deere uses rate 6 as the default on GS2 and GS3, the 2600 and 2630 monitors, as the RX prescription rate. And so that is off right now, so we're going to turn that on. So we're going to come in here and change rates. And then we're going to click on this. We're going to go to rate 6. And we're going to turn that to on. Now this simulator doesn't show up with that as being an RX on here, but what would happen is there would show up on this side, it would say RX here, and then maximum increase would be 10%, and minimum increase would be 10, or whatever. It's going to have a plus or minus down here that you can up it or lower it in there. And so that'll show up there and it'll say RX here. But since this is the simulator, doesn't have that, we're just going to turn it on for now. And so then we're going to hit next, go back to our rate screen. It should say RX in here for rate 6 if you've got it set up right. And remember, this is a simulator, so it doesn't show up on there because it doesn't have an ability to do that. We're going to go back to this, go back to our planter screen, and we're ready to go plant now. So as we go across the field, it's going to show up on there. Now, one thing we can do, go back to our menu button and go to our GS3, and then go to our mapping screen. We want that prescription to show up on the back side of the field. We're going to come in here and go to map settings, and then our background map, we're going to change that to the prescription. And then our foreground, if we want to see what's going on, we can come in there and change that to rate of the corn. We can hit accept, and there's our planter is sitting in that field now, so now we can look at that. So there's how the prescription is looking on that field. We can zoom out there and see how that planter's what part of that prescription it's into it. If we turn on our legend here for seeds, you can set that up based on our prescription. So if we want to put in so that if it gets above 35,000 is our top, so maybe we got 34,500 is the top on there, and 31,000 is our bottom. So if we put 31,500 in there, we have that in there. Hit accept onto there. We've got that set up onto there. Now we're all set up, ready to go plant. Back at our run screen here, once we got the RX set up on here, on the GS3 it should default back to a green RX should show up right here beside our change rate button. If it doesn't, we're going to click on this. Since we turned on rate 6, it should show up as RX in here, but this monitor, this simulator doesn't have the RX onto there. It'll show up here. On a 2600 it comes up over here someplace, but whenever we're running an RX map, we want to make sure that we see that green RX map show up onto there, so make sure that's there. And so that's how we import a shapefile into a GS3 monitor or 2630 monitor. Thank you.